You are listening to Waffle, the bite-sized podcast, with Paul Jenkins. First broadcast on Rossendale Radio on the 3rd of January 2021. This week, Paul talks with 11-year-old poet Ebony Errington-Beech about her debut collection, Poems I Grew in My Garden. They talk about the exciting journey of publishing her first collection, on working with an illustrator, and she talks about her love of nature and her Plant a Tree with Ebony campaign.
Dedicated to the Rossendale Valley, this is your very own Rossendale Radio.
Welcome back to 104.7 Rossendale Radio. It's 5:05 on a Sunday evening, which means it must be time for the Waffle Hour. And when it's the Waffle Hour, usually that means that we've got some author in the studio, or we've got somebody down the phone line, somebody who's been doing this for donkey's years. They're plugging a book, they're plugging a tour, and they're trying to sell something to you. Well, usually that person's a little bit long in the tooth, and they've usually been doing this for quite a while. However, sometimes we get people who are just that little younger than everybody else, but they're doing exactly the same thing. I have the absolute pleasure this afternoon of being able to, for the first time on Zoom as well, this is the first time we're trying to do this on Zoom, I've got Ebony Errington-Beech on the phone. Hello, Ebony, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great.
This is great, and we're trying this through Zoom, and we've just had the thumbs up from the other side of the studio that actually people at home can hear you as well, so that's always good to know. Now, we're talking to you this afternoon. Just remind the people at home, how old are you, Ebony?
I am 11 now, but I was 10.
You were 10 at the time, and this is the reason you're saying you're 10 at the time is you've done something that most 10-year-olds probably haven't done at some point or another. You've actually written a book, haven't you?
Yeah, I've written a book called Poems I Grew in My Garden.
Poems I Grew in My Garden. Now, it's an amazing collection. How many poems are there in the book altogether?
About 22 or 23. It
is. There's quite a few in there, and I've got to say, it's amazing that you've produced all of these, and you've done them. You wrote most of them. I think all of them were written this year. Is that? Oh, sorry, it's not this year because we're into 20. I've already done that thing where I've forgotten what year it is. You wrote them in during 2020, didn't you?
Yes, most of them I wrote during 2020.
It's absolutely fantastic. Now, I've had the pleasure of reading the all of the poems, and we're going to be talking about the book and how it was put together in a little while, because our very own Melanie Kemp had a hand in doing that as well. She's going to be joining us in the studio for the second part of the interview. But do you want to, first of all, just for the people at home, they may not have come across your work before, do you want to share one of the poems from the book? What one do you want to go with first?
I'd like to go with Thou Art a Tiger.
Excellent. So this is Thou Art a Tiger by Ebony Errington-Beech.
A gasp of breath I want to take. Sight of thee, tiger, I start to quake. Quiet, still, hidden in the dark, compelled to question thy tiger's heart. Sunset orange embroidered on your skin. Jet black stripes like midnight sin. Mouth of dagger, eyes of gold, tongue of pink and bones of balls. Mercy may lie down in deep. Thou art in my dreams, I will not sleep. Claws of rage and tail of swift. Paws of temper roar like fists. Heart of marble, ears of stone. Thou taken my metal, it is not shown. Thy wisdom comes from deep inside. I am encumbered, I will not hide.
Absolutely fantastic work, and well read, first of all. And I've said this before about reading that poem for the first time. There's language in that poem that, as a writer myself, I've not used some of those words before. How do you go about doing that? Do you hear those words and think, you know what, I'd love to know what that means? Or are you like me? Do you go and look up words and find a thesaurus or something like that? Because there's some really complicated language in that poem, isn't there?
Well, first I'll write a line and then I'll have a rhyming word for that certain rhyme. And I'll go for a rhyming word like that, and I'll dig in for different types of words and different languages and words you wouldn't really use usually, like unusual words you wouldn't use every single day.
It makes it more interesting for a reader or a listener, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love using different types of words I've not used before.
I remember you were saying that when you first wrote that Thou Art a Tiger, it was actually a school it was a school piece. Was it a piece of homework that you had?
Yeah, it was a piece of homework I had to do from school, and we were all given an example by Blake called Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright.
Right.
And I noticed that it was all written in Old English, and I thought, let's have a challenge and let's try and write it all in Old English.
Well, yeah, I mean, wouldn't we all love to do that? You go, you know what? I'm just going to write everything in Old English for now. Let's just make things more difficult than they were before. And to be honest, if you're going to get results like that, then carry on doing that. That's amazing. There's so much of the poetry in the book that's about animals or nature, and we're going to get on to talking about a very special campaign that you're putting together called Plant a Tree with Ebony. That's all part of the book. But before we do that, of course, you've chosen the music this afternoon as well for our playlist. And now it's again, when I said that I said there's an 11-year-old coming on, she's going to choose the playlist, and everyone went, oh, it's all going to be chart stuff. It's all going to be stuff from now. You've gone for a massive 1980s fest this afternoon, which I'm very impressed at. And we're starting with Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Why have you chosen this song?
Well, I love Michael Jackson's music. Compared to the stuff now, it's all rubbish.
I like that. Really, really opinionated about music. We'll have to get you in on the head-to-head that we have on the afternoons about music opinions. And is this just a decent track to dance to? Yeah. Yeah,
I love playing it in my room and just dancing to it and listening in.
And that is a perfect reason to play any song. Here by Michael Jackson. This is Billie Jean.
Like us on Facebook.
Facebook.com/Rossendale Radio.
And follow us on Twitter @Rossendale Radio.
Proud to be your local radio station. 104.7 Rossendale Radio, Lancashire.
Welcome back to the Weekend Wind Down. It's Paul Jenkins here, and we're not only speaking to Ebony Errington-Beech, but we're also being joined in the studio by Melanie Kemp as well. Good afternoon.
Hello again.
Hello. It's like she's never been away, and Ebony's clapping in the background there because of the fact that for a change we can actually all hear each other. Now, Ebony, you and Mel have worked together. Mel's illustrated the book, hasn't she?
Yes, she's illustrated all the book beautifully.
There you go.
I paid her to say that.
You paid her to say that. Well, I mean, do you want to take us through? I mean, what are some of the pictures in the book? What kind of things can we expect to find if we pick up a copy of it?
Basically every single page is beautiful. They're all hand drawn and been painted pictures in the book. One of my favourite ones is The Way I Felt, which is a picture of an eye with a thunderbolt in the iris, and a big splash of colours just being thrown on, and it's absolutely perfect.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I was very inspired by the words in the poem. I was saying to you just the other day how I really enjoyed illustrating the book, because so many of your poems have a nature theme, which makes it really easy for me to pick up on things for you to for me to illustrate from the words. And then that poem, The Way I Felt, is more about emotions. So I got to that one, I was like, oh no, what do I do now? I can't draw a tree or I can't draw a bird. But I loved the idea you talk about thunder in your heart and things like that, and the lightning strike, and I loved those elements. So I thought, let's bring those in and let's bring it into the person. And so yeah, I loved the idea of drawing that one for you.
And it is lovely to when you look through the book, you see the way that the words and the pictures they kind of go together. Now we've got a good example of this. You're going to share one of the poems, and then Mel's going to talk about the illustration for that particular poem. And what's the next piece you're going to share with us?
The River of Lost Whispers.
Okay, River of Lost Whispers.
The river flows with the whispers of lost men, unbroken hunters, their shoulders tattooed by bamboo stem. Snakes, emerald scaled, ascend the breeze of the boscage. Still breath, their eyes full of wisdom and age. Colourful wings soar above scattering prisms of dreams. Leaves hefty, sunlight raises like fluorescent beams. Fresh scents of the wilderness swallow the air. The wind a flute, every major soothing me like a prayer. Fire burns in the night, my life flashing like a charred picture. Secrets swell the flames, whispers grow ever richer. The secrets cherished with the heart of the river. She will not be destroyed, for her fortitude will last forever.
Her fortitude will last forever, and
Amazing.
that's. I mean, those are words that the other night when we were at the launch for the book. It was the words that really kind of rang true with me, and I felt like actually you're going to be here forever. You're going to be sort of doing this poetry malarkey for a long time now.
I think so.
And now, the poem itself in the book? We're talking about the illustrations here. What's the sort of illustration for that particular poem? This River of Lost Whispers.
It's a snake that's been is like curling around this tree that's been beautifully sketched, and then a big splash of green paint has been thrown over it, which I think is an excellent touch. I couldn't ask for a better illustration.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Well, to be fair, I mean,
Why,
Ebony,
thank you.
it sounds like from the way you've described it, it's got a big splash of paint over it. Did you just have an accident when you were painting it? Is that what the problem was?
No, I didn't. What I wanted to do was we wanted to illustrate the book because we wanted to make it stand out, and we wanted people to enjoy it on as many levels as possible. But obviously, Ebony's words are so fantastic. I mean, I know we keep going on about I can't believe she's only 10, but for someone
11.
Sorry, well, 11 now, obviously, but 10 when she wrote them. But, even for someone of our age, these poems are absolutely astounding. You can't believe that they've come from someone who's so new to the world. But the language in that is absolutely beautiful. It talks about the emerald snake and the boskage, which we had to look up to make sure that we knew what we were talking about, and that's about trees. And I absolutely adored the fact that these words were so strong, but I didn't want to overpower them with too many images. So what I wanted to try and do was for each image, I've drawn something fairly simple. So it's just a line drawing, and in this case, it's the snake wrapping itself around the tree. But then I wanted to give it just that little impact of most of them are just one flat colour behind.
Yeah.
So we picked up on the emerald of the snake on that one and added the splash of green, because I read Ebony's poems and they feel like a work of art to me, just in themselves. So I wanted each to be able to, if you printed them out and framed them, that each individual piece would stand alone as a complete work of art. And hopefully I've done it justice.
They do, and I think some of the pictures are actually going to be printed as works of art at some point or another as well.
Let's get them on it.
Now the whole book is together. It's been released on Amazon and on Kindle. And Ebony, do you want to? We only really launched it just before Christmas, but whereabouts was it in the bestsellers list yesterday?
I was at number 7 yesterday, and now. Oh, sorry. I was at number 7 yesterday. And now I'm number 4.
You're at number 4 in all of and this is the women's poetry chart. So basically, of all of the female authors out there that have released books in the last month, you're currently sitting at number 4 in the Kindle charts, and I think that's an absolutely amazing thing.
Amazing. I
mean, there's some collections on there. I think if I remember correctly, there's one by Virginia Woolf, right?
Yeah, you beat out Virginia Woolf and Sylvia Plath.
Sylvia Plath. There's some pretty household names that have got collections of poetry.
You were just behind Nikita Gill, who's pretty much the most famous female poet out there at the moment.
I think Sarah Crossan has got a new one out as well. She's watching her back as well.
So I think it's a pretty hefty companionship you've got there.
It's just brilliant the amount of the way that the book is taking off at the moment. Now we're going to take a very quick break again for some music. And I'm just looking at here. Again, we've gone 80s. You've gone for Culture Club, which I think, bearing in mind that we've just been talking about a snake, we're now moving on to a chameleon, which is not a million miles away. We're in reptiles. But why Karma Chameleon?
I just love this song because it's really good to dance to, and I've got to say all the 80s songs are probably around the 80s all the best songs were written.
Well, I think Joe, who presents our Back to the 80s show on a Thursday evening, I think he'll be very impressed to hear you say that. This is Karma Chameleon. This is Culture Club.
Rossendale Radio.
Welcome back to the Weekend Wind Down. It's the Waffle Hour. I've got Ebony Errington-Beech on the line with me. And obviously we've just been chatting to Melanie Kemp about the illustrations of the book. But Ebony, it's been brilliant to hear you talking about the book this afternoon. But what's this Plant a Tree with Ebony? What's all that about?
Well, Plant a Tree with Ebony. I absolutely love trees, and I love nature, and I love animals.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be alive without trees, and neither would the animals we all love and have in our homes.
And I was going to say, and so obviously you got that love of nature, but how does that work with the book and the proceeds from the book? What's your plan?
Well, I love trees so much that I decided that I was going to plant trees. So every book you buy, you will have a tree planted. So
basically, the proceeds from the book, the profits from the book, actually go towards buying new saplings to plant somewhere in the UK. And you were kind of inspired by, because we're about to talk about your media work that you've done, as well as this interview you're doing at the moment. We're also talking about that you appeared on BBC Countryfile. Is that right?
Yes.
I
was on BBC Countryfile with Plant Britain.
Yeah, and that was launching their big tree planting campaign, which actually is part of the proceeds of the book. So we'll be able to track where your trees have been planted once we've got the profits from the book, and we'll be able to sort of buy new saplings. That means that you'll be able to work out where they've been planted. And you appeared, was it Quarrybank Mill? I think you said you planted about 30 trees that day, didn't you?
We planted 300 trees through the whole group, but we did about 30.
So as you and your family went down there, just, planting small saplings, so creating 300 trees, that's enough for a small forest, which is amazing. And as well as that, it's not just Countryfile that you've appeared on. You also ended up appearing on American television, didn't you?
Yes, I appeared on the Kelly Clarkson show. Which,
actually, I think it's a bit of a diss to Kelly Clarkson. We haven't chosen any Kelly Clarkson music this afternoon. I think we're going to have to play some in a little while, just to kind of balance out a little bit. So you got in front of millions of people to share one of your poems, and Kelly put you in contact with an American poet, didn't she?
Yes, she got me in contact with Amanda Gorman, the Youth Laureate of the USA.
And she's been in, since the show itself, Amanda's been helping mentor you, hasn't she?
Yes, she's been mentoring me, giving me advice, and she's such a lovely mentor. She's a very nice person.
Actually, I tell you what, I'm very, very jealous of the fact that you got to work with Amanda. She's very famous on Twitter, and she does lots of work sort of online as well, sort of sharing things online, which is wonderful. There's so much I want to pack into this. There's also a shout out I want to give to a mutual friend of ours, Angela Marston, because we wouldn't have met, you and I, if it wasn't for the fact that we appeared in a book together. We appeared in the Poems for a Pandemic book, which we featured here on Rossendale Radio. This was how we met, first of all, through interviewing just like this. And we were poetry buddies, weren't we, in the book?
Yes, you wrote a poem in the book, and I wrote a poem in the book.
And we both chose the same guy to write about. We wrote
about Captain Tom Moore. Captain
Tom Moore, of which he was a captain at the time. I think he's moved up to colonel now. He's even bigger than the both of us. But I think you've done if you look back at 2020, everybody else has said, oh my goodness, 2020 was such a hard year. Was it such a hard year for you?
No.
It does seem to be that what you've done, Ebony, is just turn what was quite tricky for everybody. I think you've turned it into an absolutely amazing success for yourself. So are you pleased with what you've done now?
I am super pleased, and I'd like to thank everyone who has bought the book, and Angela Marston, Amanda Gorman, and the Kelly Clarkson show.
I was going to...
And you and Mel.
Well, I was going to say to be honest, when we heard your work, it was kind of like it was obvious that we were going to try and do something with it, because it just seemed to be that we wanted to share it with the rest of the world, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the rest of the world are hearing and seeing what we've been seeing for quite a long time now. It's been lovely to speak to you on the radio this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Your last tune, we've gone even further back than the 80s. We've gone to the Beatles. How come we've gone for Penny Lane?
Well, I've got to say that's probably my favourite Beatles song of all time. It's such a nice song, but well, they're all nice songs, but I really like this one because it's about their hometown, and you can really visualise where they lived.
It's a great one for characters, which, to be honest, a poet is always looking for characters. Ebony Errington-Beech, thank you very much indeed. This is the Beatles.
104.7 Rossendale Radio.
And so we come to the end of another Waffle, the Bite-Sized podcast. What an episode that was. My thanks go to Ebony Errington-Beech for being absolutely fantastic as a guest. So confident, amazing poetry, and what a book launch. Honestly, I can't recommend poems that I grew in my garden enough. And my thanks as well to our regular producer on the show, Melanie Kemp, who also came on as a guest this week. It was marvellous to speak to you. My thanks, as ever, go to everybody at Rossendale Radio for allowing us to broadcast on a Sunday afternoon, and of course again to Melanie Kemp for all of her work producing and editing Waffle, the Bite-Sized podcast. We'll be back with you next week. Stay safe, everybody.